All right, welcome, friends. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, we are talking about the sensitive conversations that we have with parents. I'm Samantha Moe, if you haven't met me before, and there are really three essential skills to have these conversations in a way where we're invited in to partner and engage parents instead of stepping on toes or accidentally causing offense, as well as I really want to talk about the simple side of entering these conversations, because as helpers, a lot of us stay awake at night racking our brain and spending way too much time and energy thinking about how to approach the topic. So my hope is to make things a bit simpler for you here today. We have a handout in the chat box, and one of our friends on the call here is going to post that again a few minutes into this presentation. So I want to take you back with me to it would have been 2005. I had graduated the year before with my master's degree in communication disorders, and I've got my hand on the door of the third grade classroom, and I'm filled with dread because it is my job for the day to go and pick up Charlie. Now, Charlie was only 9 years old, but he was known for his epic meltdowns in the autism school that I was working at. And I used all of my powers of persuasion to transition Charlie out of the classroom without a meltdown and without disrupting everybody. We're heading down the long hallway to my speech therapy office to work on our social skills lesson for the day. And we're 15 steps away and hope is building. We're 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, and that's when it happens. Charlie has a complete meltdown on the floor. I'm looking down at my feet. He's kicking, he's flailing, he's yelling those things you never want to hear a child yell at you in public. And as I look over my shoulders, I can see some teachers peering through the cafeteria in their classroom, and I can imagine them judging me. What is that bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Samantha going to do in this situation? And as I felt the sweat drip down my back, I looked down at Charlie and I thought, I have no idea what to do here. Even though I had a master's degree in communication disorders, there were some tools that I just didn't have in my belt quite yet. And so now that I'm 19 years later, I'm no longer embarrassed to say, I just bribed Charlie, skipped the lesson, and brought him back to the classroom. That is not a luxury we all have in every given moment. And I want to share with you, though, that I think we all have these moments of self-doubt where we're really wondering, like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Do I come in gently? Do I use my emotional attunement strategy? Do I have a firm hand? Do I keep a strong boundary? Should I go get that tool over there, like the breathing ball, to tell the child or talk to the parent about like being where your feet are and taking deep breaths? But you know that in that moment, if I would have given it to Charlie, he would have thrown the ball and probably at me to get me out of his space. So I had this dilemma and this turmoil. And when I went back into my office all those years ago, I remember putting my head in my hands and sitting at my desk and thinking, maybe I chose the wrong job. So we have these moments where we wrestle with that inner voice and we're looking for solutions to make things better. And we're wondering, like, am I really cut out for this? My anthem at the time was by the Beatles and John Lennon. All you need is love. And I was like, no, please, that's not all you need in these situations. I wish it was true. And as I wrestled with what to do with my career and my future, thank goodness I heard my mother's voice in my head. She raised us 5 kids in my family, plus 5 daycare kids here in Minnesota. And her voice said, every child has gifts. Every child has gifts, and you can learn to draw them out. And so that really kickstarted my career into trying to figure out what is it that I'm missing. And I did a lot of research and brain science and sensory integration and play therapy, and one of my personal passions, which is mindfulness. And I really wanted to answer this question, like, how do I make these kids' lives better? And selfishly, which I think is a fine thing, how do I make my life easier? Because if I really want to make an impact, like, this has to be sustainable for everybody. So I wanted to give up, but I started seeing a pattern as to why kids act that way. And we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about why do kids act the way that they act, because I think we need that refresher as before we enter the topic of, let me fast forward it here for you. Why do kids act that way? And then why do parents react that way? Like, why are they behaving the way that they're behaving? And then we're also going to cover like how do we talk to parents about both? How do we talk to them about their kids, and how do we talk to them about their parents, about themselves? Because when we are professionals working with specializing in children, it can be challenging because we'll have the parent come in to see us and they'll maybe not say this directly, but they'll imply it. How can you fix my kid? What tool can you give me to fix my kid or to fix the situation? And what we know is that there are things that we need to do in order to address parents. So this is the roadmap for what we're going to be talking about here today. What I would love to learn from you, if you're able to type in the chat box, is why you joined today. Why was it important for you to set aside an hour here live in, Midwestern Central Time? It's 10:15 a.m. on a Saturday. I know we've got some people out of the country and in different time zones. So type in the chat box, why are you here today? What's important for you to learn? And if you wanted to share what your profession is, like I said, I know we've got a lot of sleep coaches, social workers, we've got some OT and speech clinicians here. There's a couple of medical professionals, pediatricians. Welcome, welcome. So as you're typing that, I'll give us the overview in case you haven't heard it like this before. What is important for you to know with my background is that I transitioned or evolved, I should say. I evolved from being a speech language pathologist from 2004 until 2011. And then I became certified as a parenting coach and life coach because I had so many of these moments where kids were melting down. And then I was using some of the tools that I'm sharing with you today and having some really great success with kids having self-regulation and having fewer meltdowns. But I wasn't a parent until 2020. So I currently have a 3-year-old at home, and I was a parent coach well before I was a parent, because the question of what am I missing here with these kids and meltdowns and how do I improve their quality of life transferred over to what am I missing with parents? And so I became a home-based practitioner in 2011. And very quickly after I got certified as a parent and life coach, started working with parents directly. And I remember there was a parent of a little boy named Drew who was 5 years old. It was right when I was leaving my career as a child specialist to focus on parents. And I remember Drew was autistic, and Drew's dad would take him into the clinic every single week where we'd work on a social skills and expressive language lesson. And dad would say, I see that you're doing wonderful things with him, but the home program you've designed, I can't get him to do it. And so I'd think about it and I'd refine it and bring dad into sessions with me and like, see, this is how you do it. And a few weeks would pass and I'd check in on the home program and dad would say, well, I can't get him to do it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me think about this again. And how do I refine this to help dad get connected and engage with his child? And the conversation shifted over time to, I can't get him to, he won't do it. I can't get him to do it. And then finally, dad straight up said to me, I just didn't do it. Like he gave up. And when I was leaving the field, I said, I want to go into this direction of really supporting parents so that I can close that missing gap. There's all these places where families can bring their children, but not always a space for parents. Would you be honest with me? Like, why didn't you do the home program? And one of the things that dad confided in me is he said, I have this chronic health condition. And when I get home after this session, I need to put food on the table for all 3 of my children. And by the time that's done, I don't have any energy left in order to do the program. And so I want to talk about that today to really remind us of this stance of compassion and being present with parents. We can feel really frustrated as the professional talking to our colleagues about, oh, this parent wants me to fix them again, but I've been giving them this strategy for XYZ years and they haven't been doing it, or not years, maybe months. So that's going to be part of our conversation here today as well. All right, so looking at who is here and why it's important for you to be here. Thank you. I see sleep coach, music teacher. Yeah, I bet things have changed a lot in how you can talk to parents over the years. Year 28. Congratulations, Brenda. Dealing with challenging kids daily. Thank you, Jackie. Sleep coach, licensed mental health counselor, pediatric sleep coach. We were all kids at one time, so it's nice to understand humans in general. I agree. All right, we have a lot of colleagues and certified professionals by Kim West. I see that, Angie, welcome. Toolbox of coaching skills. And when you are raising a spirited, intense, sensory sensitive child, now a teenager, yeah, this can be relevant. So as we move into the content today, we want to answer the first question for all of us, or I want to answer this first question of why do kids act that way? If you've heard this before, great. It's always worth repetition, but I want you to listen to it from the perspective of being somebody who's going to communicate this to parents. Because a lot of parents will come to us and they'll talk about dysregulation, and they'll be able to mirror back to us, well, my child is co-regulating off of me and I know I'm really busy, but and so I want to bridge the gap for you to help you understand how to talk to parents when there's not follow through, like what's really happening. And I've learned over the years to really make it simple for them. So Dr. Daniel Siegel is the leading neuroscientist who wrote The Whole Brain Child. And he's been really active in this field of child development. And he's taught everybody and written books about how as humans we have this upstairs brain and we have this downstairs brain, and the downstairs brain is responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. Now, you're all professionals for the most part on the call here. So type in the chat box, what do you know about fight, flight, or freeze? What have you heard, or what do you teach when you're talking about this downstairs brain or fight, flight, or freeze? I'll share with you that some of the things that are essential for us to know so that we can pass along to parents is that, this fight, flight, or freeze is a stress response. It's not necessarily logical. It's also primitive and early developing. So this was important in early days before we had, cement and concrete housing. I'm in the Midwest, like I was saying, in Minnesota, so there's black bears in the woods. So if a black bear was chasing me through the woods, then, or if I got between a mother and her cub, then this part of my brain would activate. And it's designed to keep me alive. I'm either going to fight, I'm going to flee and run away, or I'm going to freeze and I'm going to play dead. So this is important from a survival level. Some people call this the lizard brain. And we want to contrast this to the upstairs brain because that's responsible for the things we as adults love. We love this for our kids, and we love this when we're coaching other parents and counseling them. So upstairs brain is problem solving, paying attention, and managing behaviors. So when Charlie was melting down at my feet, I was thinking, well, he's autistic and he's dysregulated, and I know he's highly reactive and he's also sensory avoidant. Like I knew all these terms in my head, but in terms of like, well, what do I do when he's screaming, I hate you, and I feel really embarrassed? Like it didn't give me an obvious solution. So what I like to say is that when we take this brain science into account and we recognize that the downstairs brain, when it's activated, floods the whole brain with stress chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol, which means the child in that moment can't access their upstairs brain. I like to say that there's fire in the brain. So fire in the brain floods everything and makes it the upstairs brain inaccessible. And this was like an aha moment for me when I started learning about this, working with these kiddos, where I was like, oh, I see why I can't say things like, Charlie, what could you do right now instead of yelling, I hate you? This is also super valuable for my 3-year-old right now, right? In those moments of problem solving. I can't be like, Mason, what do we do right now instead of throwing toys across the room? Like, that's not a good strategy in the moment when there's fire in the brain. It's also not a good strategy. This was kind of old school autism. I don't know if it's true now since it's 19 years later. But I'd be like, hey, look at me, check my eyes when I'm talking to you. Like, I'm trying to engage Charlie when he's flailing on the floor. Not a good strategy in that moment. Parents who have little kids, you might be like, look at me, I'm trying to talk to you. It's time for supper. So kids can't access that when this fire in the brain is activated, or these behavioral management strategies. I tell you, folks who use these skills and teach these skills, DBT professionals and mindfulness professionals, and my friend Kathy Flaminio teaches yoga and movement and breathing in the public schools, and she has amazing strategies. And I remember my early days of trying to get kids to use these strategies in the moment, and it would just fall flat. And you might hear parents saying the same thing. And I see you nodding as well, Angie, as you're listening, right? Like, it falls flat. It takes a lot of skill to use these strategies, and you can't use it when there's intense fire in the brain. We have to address the foundational piece, which is calm the fire. And so for calming the fire, I share this language with you because if I'm in Trader Joe's and my child has a meltdown and I think, oh, I need to calm fire in the brain, it gives me a new toolbox. It gives me a new trigger in my mind of something that I can think of. And sometimes we don't know exactly how to calm the fire. If you think about a dog who's enraged, if you're trying to calm the fire, we're not like, get over here and pick up the dog and being aggressive and like, da, 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 da. What we do is we slow down, we breathe, we try to show that we're safe. That's how we calm the fire in kids as well, as we start there. And from a parenting perspective, what's important for you to know is how to, it's important to straight up share this information with parents. You can draw a little silhouette of a brain and show downstairs and upstairs and draw this fire in the brain. And then we can talk about, well, what does fire in the brain look like in your home? So it's nice because we're starting from like this brain science perspective, which is, thank goodness, something that parents really want to learn right now. It's really intriguing to parents and teenagers for their own brain, and younger kids as well. So understanding about fire in the brain, and then it opens up the door for us to ask questions like, what does fire in the brain look like with your child? And what some parents will ask you right off the bat is there such a thing as fire in a parent's brain? I think I have it. And this allows you to say, well, yes, there is. And what does the fire in your brain look like? This might sound simple, friends, but I really hope you write it down because it is the entry point of conversation to engage parents in how they're influencing behaviors at home. That's different than some of the regular tools that we have in all of our fields. Now, Brenda posted in the chat box, thank you, a Google Drive link to the handout. So if you want these visuals, you can go and grab it at that link there. So I want to share with you what it feels like. I want to share with you a trigger of fire in the brain. Okay, so that you can feel what fire is like in your body. So for those of you who feel comfortable, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and listen to my voice for this next 30 seconds and notice what happens in your body. I'm going to ask you to report it in the chat box afterwards. And if you don't feel comfortable doing this, or you're driving, if you're driving, drive on, 2 hands on the wheel, look straight. But if you are listening to this and you don't want to close your eyes, then just keep your eyes down and just be in your own little bubble so that you can really pay attention to your body. Okay, here we go. No. Stop it. Knock it off. Don't do that. Ugh, every day no. I said no. Open your eyes. Starting phrases with no triggers fire in the brain. It is one of 11 fire starters that's hidden in everyday parenting interactions with their kiddos. So there are usually 4 common responses when fire is triggered, and a room of this size, for how many people are present, will get at least 3 of them, I think. I'll share all 4 with you. And I know we had hundreds of people register for this webinar, so I'll make sure I share all 4 of them so that everybody gets identified as what their response was. So type in the chat box, what did you notice as you were listening? What happened in your body? Yeah. Okay. So we have butterflies in the stomach, faster heart rate, tension. So you're really noticing all those physical and body responses. Yes, that's right. So that's one common response, some type of change in heart rate, change in breathing. We see these kids sometimes running around who are like breathing shallow all the time. So that tells us that they're getting more of this they have more of this fight or flight activation in their neurochemistry. Physical tension. Yeah. Where did you feel tension? If anybody feels like commenting, a lot of times it's neck and shoulders or like the tummy tension. Felt shamed. Yeah. Yeah. And like nobody's in trouble here, right? Like we know that this is a safe environment and you haven't done anything wrong and I'm a nice person and you're a nice, like all those things. It feels infuriating. You want to act out and fight back against the no. Jackie, you have more fight response. So it feels infuriating because the other side of this is those who have maybe more of a pleaser temperament, which I was that way until my 30s, and then something happened, especially now that I'm 40. It's like, I don't have that pleaser personality as much anymore. So you can activate more of the fight response if you're wired that way, or it can activate more of, I call it the wilting response, where you're just like, oh, you feel sad about yourself. I've seen kids as young as 4 come home and the parent says, well, why'd you get that bad color on the behavior chart? And they're like, I'm just a bad kid. And they like notice that they're getting pulled out of the classroom and getting scolded and going to the principal's office and having consequences. So that's a response. And then, so we have 3 of them. We stressed out, shame, self-check. Yeah, figure out, what did I do? Like we start paying attention. So the 4 common responses to starting phrases with no, we did get 3 of them, which I suspected. The 4th one's a little trickier to collect. So starting phrases with no, the 4th response is the tuning out response. So we talked about tension in the body, the sad or wilting response, the resistance or that fight response, and then the tuning out. So when my twin nephews were 3 years old, they're now 12, we'd say to them, all right, Henry and Asa, come and eat. And Henry would come running to the kitchen and we'd be like, Asa, it's getting cold. Henry's waiting. And you'd go in there and he'd be coloring and he'd just be like, do, 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 do. And you like hand on his shoulder, make eye contact. And he'd just look down, do, 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 and not register at all that he was listening. And so thinking about a stress response, we can tune people out if we're feeling stressed out. Like that can be a protective mechanism as well. We often think about it with teenagers, like whatever, not listening, but this is true for all ages. So if you wanted to know all of these 11 fire starters, I wrote a free handout, a PDF on this on the website. Actually, it's on your handout, but I can grab a link to it here as well, because that's simple. You can hit this QR, you can use your phone on this QR code, or let me see if I can get to screen share again. Come back here. I got lost in the whole thing. You could also download it here. And this becomes a really nice talking point with parents. Instead of let's fix your kid, and instead of like, let's fix you, we can talk about, well, there's fire in the brain and there are things hidden in everyday interactions with children that trigger more fire in the brain. Now, I have been speaking at OT clinics, speech therapy clinics, and mental health practices for the last couple of months here, because I have a parent educator certification for people who want to teach my 8 Mad to Glad tools. It's the program that I'm hired to teach. And one of the things that we've been talking about is how tempting it can be to give all of these 11 tools at once with parents, or to talk to them about these tools, when instead, if we can baby step our way through it. I'm in a health program right now, and she talks about the Kaizen philosophy, which is a Japanese term. It's a combination of two words, that it's Kai and Zen. And it was coined in the 80s by Toyota, that had like the best manufacturing line and assembly procedures at the time, and they were really groundbreaking in the industry. And what Kaizen meant was you make small changes so that things that happen down the road improve. So on this manufacturing assembly line, if there was something wrong at this point in it, they would stop production of everything and they would go back to fix the root of the problem, so that it didn't just keep perpetuating. And then once that was fixed, they would move forward. So it was like making these small changes so that they would have big results down the road. So when you're considering how to have sensitive conversations with parents, I've already given you some scripting around talking about fire in the brain for their child and for themselves. And then also knowing, not just giving them a handout of material, even though it's interesting to read, but if you have 5 minutes with them, taking them through that no exercise and asking them what happened in their body. And I'll tell you why. And this answers the question of, why do parents act the way that they do? And, I had a lot of answers when I was, let me pause this for a second. I had a lot of answers before I was a parent as to why parents might act the way that they do. And then I became a parent, and I was like, oh, I see. You act the way that you do because, like me, in moments, you feel desperate and you don't know what else to do. And so when we can guide them really compassionately and step by step like this, and take the blame away from who they are as a person or who their child is as a person, that can be really helpful. From a brain perspective, why do parents act the way that they do? I want to bring this final brain concept in to the conversation, which is mirror neurons. So Dr. Daniel Siegel, the neuroscientist out of UCLA, who wrote The Whole Brain Child and No Drama Discipline and lots of other books, The Mindful Brain, talks about mirror neurons that reflect the state another person is in, like a mirror. And so mirror neurons, what happens, there's two implications. Number one is, when we realize there's fire in the child's brain, what we want to do is we want to not add fuel to the fire. But the other thing, because the goal is, then we're letting the mirror neurons pick up on a person who has a calm body, who has a calm voice, and who has a calm face. And this is a mantra I give to parents: calm body, calm voice, calm face. And your parent clients will say to you, but I try that and I'm calm until it only worked, and then they only respond to yelling. Like, you hear all of that. And my response to that is, yes, and you need more. That's why there are 8 pillars of parenting. From a brain level, in order for things like positive discipline, which is behavioral management, in order for something like that to work, or following daily routines, that's upstairs brain skills and upstairs brain parenting. We need to make sure the fire in the downstairs brain is calm. And then we build. I find that most families need a combination of 3 to 5 tools from the 8 that I teach, and they really self-identify by going through the program. There are lots of families who know, like, we're not a yelling family, but then they'll find themselves, I'll share another fire starter that's on the PDF that I gave you. And that is, they will overteach with logic. So the kid will be really upset. And that's a very right brain reaction. Limbic system, emotions, right brain, they're yelling. And for all you sleep coaches, you see this a lot at night. There's like this big pressure valve release at nighttime, and parents are exhausted, and there's mirror neurons at play, and there's fire at play here. But there's also this thing that's happening throughout the day that just, like culminates at nighttime. All of these weak areas show up in the family dynamic at sleep time, which is parents start using left brain, which is responsible for logic and language and trying to be linear. It is time to go to bed. We took a bath, we read your books, we did this, and now you're yelling. And if you stay up later, then I'm going to have to do this, and then you're not going to get that. So they start using logic and language and consequences in that moment, when the child is stuck emotionally. So it's teaching the parents to calm their own fire. What do they need to do to prepare ahead of time in that moment so that they're not adding fuel to the fire and being reactive themselves? And creating the space to see what the emotional child needs them to see. Yes, you're upset. I see you're mad about this. And talking about it doesn't mean, again, like the calm strategy, it doesn't mean the kid's like, yep, I am. I'm going to sleep now. I'm drowsy. Thanks, mom or dad or caregiver. And they go right to bed. But what it means is the emotional brain that's like, see me, hear me, see me, hear me, see me, hear me. This is middle brain. What happens is it has like this breath of relief. I'm seen and heard. I can turn the volume down. Why did I start talking about this in the first place? Mirror neurons. So mirror neurons reflect the state that another person is in. So we want to be aware of these brain concepts as well as these unintentional fire starters. And then we want to know, not only are we tasked as the adult to model with a mirror, calm body, calm voice, calm face, but we must know, please listen, okay, friends, because this helps you acknowledge the parent who's upset. We must also realize that our mirror neurons are triggered in that situation. So we don't have to feel guilty or ashamed that we lost our crap again. Like we don't feel good about it, but in those moments we can like witness, oh, my mirror neurons are being triggered. Okay, so it gives us some tools. So what could we do to recover your calm? And so instead of like, here's this home program that we're following, it's parents become resourceful. Like, well, I might need to step away. We might need a password to tag team. I might need to start this half an hour sooner. I might need to make sure I've done my devotional. Like there's all this resourcefulness that when you talk more about the brain, instead of like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, that can keep the door open instead of stepping on toes, which makes parents not want to partner, because if you're a parent, you know it's hard. And so we want somebody who can understand us and be really gentle and tender with us in this process that feels long to us as parents when we want something to shift. But when you get really good at it, I work with families for 6 months and you learn these 8 tools and the 3 to 5 that are key for you. And it's just a game changer that you can take throughout the entire child raising experience. Oh, okay. So just to comment on this, somebody's asking about the 11 fire starters PDF. If you get to my website, go all the way, scroll down to the bottom of the page, or go to samanthamoe.com/professionals and scroll all the way down, and that's where you'll find the PDF. All right. So we've talked about fire in the brain, and so why do kids act that way? We've talked about fire in the brain. Why do parents act that way? Let's say react. Why do parents react that way? We've talked about not knowing fire starters, their own frustration. We've talked about the mirror neurons in their brain. And then I've given some scripts already on how to talk about both. So I'm going to talk for a little bit more here because we have another 25 minutes still set aside for this online class. But I also want to open it up for folks who have questions about talking to parents and mastering these sensitive conversations. So if you want, you can raise your hand. You can type your question in the chat box. This can be an interactive conversation. And what's going to happen after this, just to paint the picture, is some of you have seen, if you're just joining the conversation now, this is new for you, but some of you have seen that I certify professionals to become Mad to Glad parent educators. And basically what that means is the 8 tools that I teach parents, you gain permission and training and how to teach these 8 tools so that you can take parents through classes and you can host them paid or unpaid to teach all of these 8 skills. We have people teaching this program in schools. We have clinicians teaching it in OT and speech clinics. We have LMFTs and LPCCs. These are our mental health friends, teaching it in behavioral and autism clinics. So just to paint the picture for you, once we're done with some Q&A, I have a colleague joining me because in this parent educator certification process that starts later in October, Kareem who has just joined us. He has a business here in Minnesota of culturally competent group homes, and he has a license to bring licensed social workers into Dubai to provide parent education and coaching there. So for 5 minutes of our call, after we've done some of our things here, Kareem is going to introduce himself and talk a little bit about this opportunity, because he wants to sponsor 1 or 2 clinicians who want to go on an adventure and do some parent education and parent coaching in Dubai. So that's kind of the roadmap for the second part of our call. And you can see Kareem's smile if you see him on the screen here. But questions, friends. Okay. I see that you found the link on the website. That's lovely. What questions do you have? Where are you having a hard time with these parent conversations? What's an aha moment for you that's going to be useful? And I can fill in the blank if nobody feels like they want to participate. I'm happy to keep chatting. Especially because I have a relationship, colleague and friend relationship with Kim West, the creator of Gentle Sleep Coaching. So she was saying that the thing that coaches tend to have a hard time talking to parents about is when there's parent conflict, or when the parent is depressed and sleep deprived. It can be difficult to talk to parents when the parents aren't following through on the plan, but maybe where parents are getting stuck is they need to complain or blame their kid for a little bit and be heard before they're ready for another tool. So if anybody wants to talk about that, let me know, but I'm going to check in the chat box right now. And I see you turned your screen on, Kelly. Did you want to say anything? And there's no pressure.
Oh, I did turn it on for a reason. I think one of the things that I see is that one parent's ready and the other parent isn't. Like there's a parent that is willing and ready to find the answers, get the answers, look at themselves, and the other one isn't really familiar with personal growth or wanting to tap into that, doesn't think they need it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I am a big fan of this concept about how ducklings will imprint on the breathing, living being who they see after birth. So you can like have a duckling imprint on a raccoon and think that it's its parent. And I'm a believer of that in parenting. That helps my heart feel really good, that kids respond really well to a parent who's using calm, connection, and collaboration strategies well, which are kind of like the 3, that's how you get up into the brain levels: calm, connection, and collaboration skills. And so to bridge that gap, so first of all, having one parent who's willing to do the work, like we can rest easy and know that our time is valuable spent there. And at the same time, it's going to be harder for the parent who's using this approach or using these tools, and the other parent is having a deconstruction or a disruption in the relationship with the kids, and that can create tension in the partnership as well. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to ask a series of questions to get parents on the same page. And do you all want to hear those series of questions? Yeah. Okay. It's kind of like vision questions. So I'll ask parents, what's challenging? How does it feel? Now that, what's challenging, pause, let them both answer. How does it feel? That's a 15-minute conversation. Okay. So we listen and we take notes. And then I say, okay, and what have you tried? Well, I'm really good at positive discipline. I'm really good at like logic and laying down the rules and the boundaries. And somebody will be like, well, yeah, but I'm really good at playing with the kid. So you are good at that and I'm good at this. So we're like, what are the things that you have tried and what's worked and what hasn't? So this just brings all of the information into the space. And then I say, okay, well, my programs are 6 months. So if we could wave a magic wand and 3 things could be different 6 months from now, what would they be? And luckily, parents tend to be realistic. So parents rarely tell me, they rarely give me a blame answer. Well, I want my kid to entirely change and not be fiery, right? They're usually like, well, This week I heard, if my kid could stop and think, if I could just see them pausing before they hit their sibling, I would consider that a win. If my child could be more independent in the morning, it doesn't have to be all day, but if they could be more independent in the morning, that would be a win. And then oftentimes parents will say something like, I just want there to be peace. Okay, well, how many arguments are happening a day, or how many meltdowns, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you want there to be, and so how many would that be? And they'll say, well, there's 5 a day now, even if it was 1 a day, even if it was 1 a week. Like, they'll say something that's pretty realistic. And then I'll ask the next question, which is, and how would that feel? And by this point, the two parents are pretty much saying the same thing. I want there to be peace at home. I want my kid to listen. There might be some variations. I'm not a specialist. I'm a specialist in behavior and relationship. I'm not a specialist in eating. So some parents will say, and I want them to not be a picky eater. I'm like, not my realm. So we kind of flush through like, okay, here are the things that we can focus on. Is that helpful, Kelly?
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay. All right. And then, so I'm going to look at what Brenda wrote. So you try to send positive compliment emails daily, and your question is, how do I go about telling parents things they don't want to hear? Yeah, I get it. My 3-year-old, we get positive emails daily. And so getting a stressful email is tough. It's stressful because I never know how parents are going to respond. This year I have heard, I don't want to hear any more negative comments. And another one, yes, we've seen this too, and we are working on blah, 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 right? They'll be like, yes, we are seeing a parent coach. Yep, my kid's in OT. Yep, I'm working at you. I totally get, I hear you, Brenda. I hear you. Advice for approaching email conversations. I would love to crowdsource this. If somebody has advice, feel free to type it in the chat box. I don't do this, so I don't know the answer. I mean, I can riff on it, but there's a lot of people with a lot of wisdom here. I love that you're sending positive compliment emails. And what comes to mind is there is a lot of research on how many positive things do you need to say in the workplace in order for an employee to allow you to say something negative and still be engaged with you. Do you know what that ratio is, anybody? No? I mean, in general, it's 4 to 1. But if you even think about that during the week, poor Brenda sending emails to all these parents, I feel for you. You can't send a Monday through Thursday good and then a Friday bad every week. Like that's not going to work. So I picture more this type of conversation with the series of questions I was asking. You're probably only going to be able to do that a few times a year. And I wonder if guiding like maybe when you're the educator, maybe it's not your best role to have to provide this type of education for them. Maybe your time is best spent in offering them something like a link to this webinar that I have for parents coming up on the 13th about fire in the brain, and acknowledging like, I've seen that you said you've been working on this with your kid. There's this lady who specializes in helping parents who are working on this with their kid. You might find this free information really helpful. And I feel like, how does that feel in terms of the pressure for you, Brenda? Feel free to unmute.
Well, I do teach the whole school, so it is a lot. And I do teach them year after year because I teach them usually K through 5.
Will you
So
tell us what your setting is?
I teach K-5 music in a public school, and it's about 30% special ed. But I just find that it's very stressful for me, wanting to make kind of improvement plans or checking in about things, because literally like I could send one email that about a kid's behavior choices and I get, thanks so much for sharing that. We're going to work on it. We're going to talk to him at home. And then in the same week, I could get an email saying, I don't want to hear about it. Like I got a you need to figure it out kind of thing. So parents are all just really, I find like they're at different stages of dealing with different behaviors with their children. And I kind of never am sure exactly where I'm going to land in the realm of like, we're ready to make some good tools or support you and helping to do your job. And, it's very, I find that in the past, I used to be able to kind of assume in general, like support from parents. And I don't feel that as much anymore, honestly. I feel it's like, different levels of like, well, you figure it out, or that's your job, or I don't want to hear about it, or you don't know my child very well. So, and then other times I get emails that are like, oh yeah, we've been seeing that too, and people are kind of open, but I never quite know where parents are at. So it makes things a bit more stressful. And I don't assume support anymore either. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think there's I get in coaching, and this is one of the reasons I left my field of speech therapy and became a certified parent coach, because for me, it took the pressure off of, it gave me permission to talk to parents. So I think like I can see your heart and your compassion for these families. And sometimes there might just be a truth that we need to acknowledge right now, which is they're not coming to you for this. And so the fact that you're sharing information and resources is already above and beyond. And so I wonder if I could share, I'd like to share this tool from the coaching field, which is called Ask a Powerful Question. And it's like, ask permission. And if they say no, we learn a lot about, and I teach about this, about following, even because this about following the child's lead, it's like follow the parent lead and their agenda and not your agenda. And it's a powerful skill if you want to partner with parents. So I'd be curious what kind of question you could tag along to. Hey, I'm noticing this with your kid. Would you like to talk more about this? Oh, hey, I noticed, I'm thinking about my kid in music together class and some of the other 5-year-olds who are 3-year-olds or whatever, running around in class and opening and closing the doors and climbing up on the furniture and the windowsills. I'm like, what's the teacher gonna do? Like, that's what I think, but not judgmentally, but just like, oh my gosh, it's so disruptive. So I feel for you when there's so many kids in a class. And I picture in that situation, the teacher asking the family potentially like, I noticed your kid was running in and out of the doors and having a hard, not, I won't make a judgment. Your kid's opening and closing the doors while the other kids were singing. Would you like to talk more about this? And if they say, yes, I'm so frustrated by it, either you can pass on information about fire in the brain and do that education, or you can say, there's this great webinar about kids with fire in the brain and ways to help them engage in the music class better. Like, are you interested? Sure, I'll send you the link. And that might be enough.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, is to feel out where they're at.
Yeah,
and
great.
Start there rather than approach it from like where I'm at with their kids. And even sometimes, I'm 28 years in and I can see where we're headed sometimes, but that doesn't mean necessarily the parents are with me yet. So, and I get it. Like I have a son of my own that had challenges, and, you have to kind of be ready to deal with it. So my time frame might not be the same. And I think that's really good advice.
Yeah. Well, this becomes my meditation and prayer and journaling practice. Like, all right, it's called morning pages. Dump everything that's in your brain, but for 3 pages every single day to just like give people that space to live their lives, and you keep showing up. Thank you. Thank you, Brenda. The webinar I'm teaching on the 13th for parents, specifically about fire in the brain, I'll pop that in the chat box. You're welcome to share this, and then we'll put it on my blog. So it'll be easy for parents to get there. SamanthaMoe.com blog in the future. Okay. So let me talk for a few more minutes, and then we're gonna bring Kareem on, who is down at an aromatherapy conference. Did I get that right? Okay, so hang tight, Kareem. I'll unmute you in a few minutes here. But for those of you who are going to move about your day before we do that part of the conversation, and Brenda is our chat leader with sending the handout again for people who didn't get it, who joined a little later. Let me hop back over here to screen share. Okay, so let me just do a recap for myself. So we're talking about why do kids act that way? Why do parents react that way, and how to approach that conversation so that we can talk about both. And you've heard the sensitivity around emotion. You've heard using some of the brain science language that's really friendly, taking parents through that experiential activity and not just giving them a handout or not just giving them a program is how we begin to create some different create some transformation and inroads. So what I wanted to share with you is a story of when I was a parent who felt lost and desperate, and what helped. So to kind of to answer what Brenda was saying, like, what is the point that a parent is ready to change? So I remember when my kiddo was born August 2020, and we had planned a home birth with a midwife and a doula. And after 30 hours of posterior labor, my son was born, and he weighed the 86th percentile, and we were thrilled. And the midwife came back the next day, or a week later is what they would do. So she came back a week later, and she's like, your son is losing weight, not gaining weight. That can be within normal range. Let's keep an eye on it. So, and she's looking at me and she's like, how are things going for you? And I look visibly frazzled as a new mom, 38 years old with a 1 week old. But the other thing that had happened was I had broken my ankle when I was 34 weeks pregnant. So I was on crutches. I upgraded from a knee roller to crutches the Monday before Mason was born. So I'm like sitting in bed a lot, trying to nurse this baby. He had a posterior tongue tie, so milk extraction was difficult for him. He cried a lot, had food sensitivities. So my husband, who's a pediatric gentle chiropractor, and I were using all of our tools in that moment. But we looked at each other within days of his life and we're like, people do this for years? Like, people listen to kids crying for years when we think about our specialties of autism and special needs and sensory processing disorder. And the midwife came back at week 2, and she'd been checking in most days, and we got a little fish scale, like a little fish scale. We'd put Mason in a sling at home and use a fish scale to weigh him every day. And so we're feeling concerned knowing that the midwife's coming back at the 2-week mark, watching Mason's weight and hearing all of his crying. So she comes back and she says, Mason has now dropped to the 10th weight percentile, and he was only 2 weeks old. And so we called a lactation consultant who came into our house, into our condo in St. Paul, thank goodness. She worked 12-hour shifts as a lactation consultant and craniosacral therapist at one of the hospitals nearby, and had 4 kids with special needs of her own. And she came to my house at 7 a.m. I'm sitting in bed. She's sitting there with me. And she said, and I'm in tears, not knowing how to help my child thrive. And she said, Samantha, you have a really good intention, but there are some things you don't know how to do. And if you will lean on me, like you lean on your physical crutch, I will impart all of the knowledge that I have. And together we will make sure that you're successful. We will make sure that your baby gains weight and does well. And to this, I pulled a picture of this actually. And so Liz, this is my baby at first, and here's her doing some work on him. Fast forward a few months of her working with us, and Mason was healthy and thriving. And so this is him earlier this year at Easter time. And I share this story because there's a phrase out there, like these phrases that come out of our mouths commonly when we're speaking to parents can really trigger, or they become very soapbox for me. Like, one of the phrases is, well, you need self-care. And I'm like, well, yeah, everybody needs self-care, but what makes you happy? What feels good in your body if you could do that for 15 minutes? Like, sitting down and drinking coffee for 15 minutes is self-care, versus we're like, what is self-care? Okay, sorry for my soapbox. Okay, so one of the things that we say a lot is like, well, parents don't know what they don't know. And what I want to share with you in light of that story is, it's not only that we don't know what we don't know, but it's that in that moment when things are really tough, we feel desperate. And there's only 1 or 2 people who really know how desperate we truly feel. If you think about that moment when you've really struggled, you might ask the practitioner for help or your friend for help, and you're certainly processing with a loved one. but only a couple people really know. So as you're guiding parents, I invite you into that space of love and that presence and that baby stepping. And I ask you, like, if the people you work with, if I ask them, what would they say about you? Would they tell a similar story of what I'm saying with Liz right now, the lactation consultant? And that was my goal for presenting this information to you today, is to give you some tools so that your clients and your families will say that. They'll say, yeah, she let me, or he let me, they let me lean on them until I was confident enough and I had the tools where I could do it on my own. Because it's possible, and parents can make it better with their kid, and you can master these sensitive conversations. If you want to stick around to learn more about the parent educator certification that's starting later in October, you are welcome to. If you prefer to learn more about this privately, I'll send an email in 10 minutes or so that has some of that program information. Feel free to schedule a phone call with me. We start on October 20th. And we'll do it again next year. So even if you want to talk about it to see, like, would this be a good role for me as a side income, or I have a passion for groups and for parents, and I'd like to bring this into our agency. If you want to have a conversation about that, you can go to hello@samanthamo.com. I guess you don't go there. I guess you just email me and let me know, and we'll set up a conversation. And for now, Kareem is here, and he's going to talk about the Dubai project and sponsoring one or two social workers who want to be Mad to Glad certified to run some groups there and have an adventure of their lifetime. So if you want to stick around for that, please do. We're going to have a live conversation. And for those of you who joined me today or are listening to this replay, I had mentioned there's several hundred people who signed up. Thank you for sharing your time. You know where to find me, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. So bye for now for those of you. All right, Kareem, you're here.
I am here. Thank you, Samantha,
You're
for
welcome.
the invite. Yeah,
You're welcome.
yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I always enjoy every time I join your Zoom invite. I always enjoy very, very much. I think you put it all out there for everybody to make a better lives for the parents wherever they are. And that's what we're trying to do in Dubai right now for the parents over there who are also having the children that are crying for a long, long time, and that have been diagnosed with different symptoms of childhood special needs, all of them, but have a different behaviors, and every parent is dealing with their child in a different way. We would like to help them, and hopefully what you're doing for the parents here, we would like to do the parents over there pretty much the same thing that you do in the parents what you're doing here for. So to just say a little bit about me to everybody, my name is Kareem Bihi. I am in healthcare management, but I have been running group homes in South Minneapolis and Edina for mentally ill since 2004. I was never planned to become a social worker, but I was meant to become a social worker. So that was the road that was written for me, and I took it, and I am still on it. And I am very much really enjoying in a way that is so rewarding, because when you work with people and you make difference for their lives, at the end of the day, when somebody says thank you, that is priceless. And I think that's what Samantha is doing for everybody, for all the parents. And that's what I do for our clients in the group homes. It makes you feel human being. It makes you connected. It makes you humble. It makes you down to earth. It makes you all the things that makes you human being complete. And I am, so right now, if I get into the time is not very much, so I'm gonna go straight to what we're trying to do in Dubai. We have a licensing to do a coaching and consulting for parents of special children with special needs. What we're trying to do is hire 2 people, social workers, who have some experience working with children with special needs. The contract can be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. This program we plan to continue for a long, long time to reach out to the parents over there who have children that's been crying for a long time and continue for crying. So what we work is the present and the future. That is our work is for the present and for the future. So we are interested to recruit 2 people who have a bachelor degree, preferable master degree. And then those people will go to Dubai. They will be licensed as a professional license in Dubai. They will take a test by the government over there. They will give them a test, and they will be licensed to do the work, coaching and consulting. At the beginning, we're trying to do a non-medical coaching and consulting, but we will always, if we see an issue where medical and attention needs, that we'll refer to those people who do the mental health counseling and all that. But for us, what we're trying to do is non-medical coaching and consulting for the parents of children with special needs. If anybody is interested, Samantha have all my contact information. They can contact me and we can meet in one-to-one. And I can tell you the terms of this. Is a startup. It is a company, new company. But we are. I can then if anybody's interested, then I'll be able to give them the full information about the payments, the salaries. There's a different law over there, so not only the people get paid, but there's also housing allowance and transportation allowance. All those are it's a government, it's a country law, so all those are included into the salary. And so I will be very happy and open to anybody who's interested to meet and have a conversation with about always trying to do that. I can give more details so we have more time, and then we can get to know that person and also go from there. And I once again, I really, really appreciate and I thank Samantha for giving me this opportunity.
You are welcome, Kareem. I have your email. I just popped it in the chat area. Do you want people to, and we'll send out an email. Do you want people to email or do you want me to share your phone number? What's the best thing to share?
Both of them is fine. You can share both of them. Whoever feel email is fine. If calling me is fine, both. So.
That sounds good. Yeah, I know you've been really friendly with me as well in how we connect. Okay, lovely. So what an amazing opportunity I know that you're really focused on the licensed social workers right now because of some of the mandatory requirements in Dubai. I love that you specified it's for parents of kids with special needs. It can be a 6-month, 1 year, 2-year arrangement. People can email you. We've got his email address, kareembehi@gmail.com in the chat box, and I'll make sure I'll send this out in an email as well. And Kareem, thank you as well for showing up and offering this opportunity. I appreciate you seeing the value of the Mad to Glad certification and being able to provide education for parents as like that foundational stepping stone and one piece of them being able to provide some additional clinical skills to really serve the family. So thank you for your vision around this as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right. So friends who are on the call, the benefit of Zoom here is that if you have a question, now is the time to ask. It can be any random question. It can be to me, it can be to Kareem. I've got an extra couple of minutes here. And if you don't, we'll just say goodbye. So give us a moment to unmute if you felt like you wanted to ask or share something. All right, that was enough time to click a hello button or a finger wave. So thank you everybody for joining us on these essential skills to master sensitive conversations. If you want a conversation with me, you can email me hello@samanthamo.com. And if this would be a valuable presentation for your team or some professionals that you know, feel free to forward them the replay that we'll send to you, and be in contact with me if you wanted a full day behavior boot camp for your team. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Take
Thank you.
care. Thank you. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Kareem. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
Samantha. Bye, Samantha.
Bye.